Hello, welcome to this virtual edition of our year-round screening series, Film Independent Presents. I am Jeremy Aguilera Gaudet with Film Independent, and before we get started, I have to give some thanks to our awesome supporters who make this entire series possible. Thank you to our lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, our screening partners, Vision Media and Kilborn Live, and our media partner, the Los Angeles Times. I'm really excited to introduce our guests today and talk with them about their film, The Grizzlies. Please welcome director Miranda de Pencier, producer Stacey Aglok, and two of the stars from the film, Ben Schnetzer and Booboo Stewart. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you all doing?
Well, I sort of wish we could have that wine sitting behind you right now.
Oh, yes. That would be nice. Someday soon in person, we'll all meet. Thank you all so much for joining us today to talk about this really great, amazing, fun, and inspiring film. So Miranda, I want to start with you, and if you want to talk about sort of how you came aboard this project, how you came across a story. And I know you worked with one of the writers as a producer, I believe, on Anne with an E, with Maura Wally Beckett. So yeah, talk about the initial start of this project.
Well, it was a super long journey. It was 10 years in the making. So there's a lot that sort of happened on the journey. But at the very beginning, I was sent an ESPN news piece from some of the other producers in the film, and really I was blown away by this story of a group of kids in the Arctic who transformed their lives through sport. And I had suffered from depression in high school. I always loved the sports genre. So I was really attracted to it from that idea, the idea of how sports can change lives and how powerful sports can be for young people. So I was interested, and we all joined forces, and I went up to the Arctic for the first time to research the story and to meet the real kids behind the story. And when I got to Collaborators, I'd never been to the Arctic. I'd never been that far north, and I suddenly realized that I was not in Los Angeles anymore, and this was not North America as I knew it. So that's sort of the beginning, but it was the beginning of a big, long journey of discovering an Indigenous community, and then realizing how that was going to be a pivotal part of the story. It wasn't just a story about sports and youth.
And Stacey, at what point did you sort of join on the producing team?
Yeah, so I'm actually from the community that the story is based on. So I grew up in Cogluktuk, graduated from Cogluktuk High School, and I never got to be a part of the Grizzlies because the program started 2 years after I had graduated.
Oh, no.
So, but my younger siblings all got to be Grizzlies. And when I moved back home after university, I started working at the school. So I kind of got involved with the Grizzlies program in that way. But fast forward again, a few years later, I bumped into Miranda de Pencier. She was doing her first tour around the Arctic to a few different communities, including Cogluktuk, Rankin, Iqaluit. And I was running a film and photography workshop for youth there in Rankin. And so Miranda de Pencier comes knocking on the classroom door and checking to see if any youth wanted to audition for the movie. And once we started talking, Miranda and I, she told me about this amazing inspirational story that takes place in a community called Cogluktuk, but I didn't tell her that's where I was from. I just let her tell me the whole story of how it all went down, and then shortly thereafter I became involved.
Yeah, I mean, basically I realized very early on there was no way to tell this story without Indigenous partners, and as soon as I met Stacey, I knew that she would be an amazing collaborator, but it took a while for her to agree to be a part of it. I eventually went down back to the South, what we call the South, back to New York at the time, and I was talking to some people trying to reach Stacey again, saying I really want to find this Indigenous filmmaker, and I've been trying to reach her since I met her, and I'm not hearing back. And someone said, yeah, well, she doesn't like white people coming to the North and doing Indigenous stories. And so I thought, you know what, then
They can get it so wrong sometimes.
So I thought, okay, that's exactly who I really need to partner if she's willing to, so that we don't screw it up.
I want to jump ahead a little bit actually to something I was going to ask later, but Stacey mentioned it because you were asking about if any of the kids in the local town wanted to audition for this movie, and you worked with a lot of first-time actors. A lot of the people we see on screen in major roles are first-time actors. So I'm wondering if you want to talk about your audition process, if it was sort of how different it was than maybe auditioning in New York or Los Angeles, and then how working with non-professional actors and people who've never been on film before.
Well, Stacey, you want to talk about our process?
It's a very different and long process. It was so Miranda went and traveled around to a number of communities looking for auditions directly, but it's a little bit different up here in that, like, if you put out a notification for auditions for a movie, you're not going to have a lineup of people outside waiting to, you know, get in there and give it a shot. You have to really target and walk around town and be like, hey, do you want to audition? Come over.
Similar to what
thing.
Russ has to do for the lacrosse to get people
Yeah,
to lacrosse.
basically.
And you hustle
Yeah,
a lot of kids. You know, I'd go into the northern store and go, hey, you want to be in a movie? And the kid's like,
Yep.
yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm going hunting. And so it was just sort of, it wasn't like the South, you know. Mm-hmm.
I always joke too that Facebook is like my Arctic IMDb. I'm always looking for my actors on Facebook, all the Inuit actors, just scrolling through. Do they have the look that we're going for, the age? But on top of that, we also just reached out to all the different schools across the Arctic, encouraging teachers and art teachers to help students audition. And in the end, we had over 600 people submit short video auditions, right, Miranda? And of those 600, 60 youth were selected to come to Iqaluit to do a week-long workshop. But Miranda, do you want to talk a little bit about the workshop?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was important to us, and you know, really, Stacey and her partner Alethea, Anna Cook-Burrell, our other producing partner, were saying we can't just have auditions and then do a workshop with kids and then send them back to their communities without something to carry forward, because the kids that don't get in the movie, we don't want them to have disappointment. And also this idea that education needs to continue in the North and people should get something from it. So we basically did a kind of workshop where we brought in Indigenous teachers and taught throat singing, drum dancing, Inuit mask work, filmmaking, photography. And it was this amazing, really kind of arts workshop with Inuit youth. And then we kind of also did foundation acting classes. And at the very end, we said, and if you want to audition for the movie, you can. So it became something that was much more community building. And therefore, by the end too, the kids that felt comfortable in front of the camera, the kids that felt comfortable having to deal with some very emotional scenes, we knew that they wouldn't get triggered. We knew they were comfortable. You know, we were joking once. So the cast, it was amazing to find these. Yes, we couldn't find our young Inuit actors in New York and LA because you can't just call up and say, find me the best, you know, 15-year-old Inuit actors. They didn't exist, but not because they aren't there and aren't extraordinary. They just hadn't had the opportunity. And so we're thrilled that we were able to find them, that now there's going to be a lot more, obviously, Indigenous projects that are happening in the world, and we're excited by that. And so some of the talent we found have gone on to more Indigenous projects. It's very exciting. But really, most of these kids were performing for the first time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, Ben and Booboo can talk about it as experienced actors, but it was amazing collaboration to put these first-time actors with these amazing experienced actors and have everyone connect.
Yeah, and let's go to Ben and Booboo, and if you each want to talk about how you became involved with the project and what attracted to you about this project, and then sort of what it was like working with a group of non-professional actors. Ben,
Booboo,
you want to start?
Take it away.
Or Booboo? Yeah.
I'll start. Okay. I read the script and just really just fell in love with it and was really moved by it and really inspired by it, and kind of clambered after a meeting with Miranda, and we Skyped Miranda for like 2 hours, and yeah, I just it was all on the page, and the structure of the narrative had such integrity, and it was I don't know, like it was just, things were in the right place. And after speaking to Miranda and getting an idea of where she was coming from and the team that was being put together, I was just really thrilled about it. And I remember Skyping with you, but the start date wasn't for like 10 months later, which is like, that's like a good amount of lead-in time. It was something like that. And I remember going, is there any chance that it's going to get bumped up? And you were like, no, because we have to shoot, when you're that far north, when you're in Nunavut, we had to shoot in the spring in order to have, like, you know, in order to have enough daylight and enough nighttime to shoot both day and night. Because if we had shot any later, it would have been daylight like 20 hours a day. And again, in the winter, it's nighttime for so long. And yeah, and then flew up, and it's such an extraordinary part of the world. It was quite a remarkable experience for the team, for those of us on the team who aren't from there, to all be to all get to see that part of the world and tell this story was just super humbling and really inspiring.
Nice. And
Booboo, how'd you get involved?
Yeah, how did you get involved?
I was auditioning. I had auditioned several times and for several different characters, and I met Miranda. She came to my family. We have a ranch. She came to our ranch and she videotaped me running, and it was just through a series of auditions, meeting Miranda, talking to her several times, phone calls, and me thinking that I wasn't right to play the part. At one point, I was like, I should play this other part. And she was like, no, you can't play this other part. You have to play Kyle. It was a lot of that. And I'm so happy she was so persuasive and pushed me to play this part that I thought was going to be really hard. And yeah, I'm very thankful. The story, as soon as I read the script, I was just like, this is it. And like Ben said, it was all on the page. It was all that we needed. And with Miranda driving it and just everybody that was there. And as soon as you got to Iqaluit, it just automatic. Like I remember being in the car and driving to where I was staying, and we had to pull off the side of the road because we got lost because we couldn't see where we were going because it was snowing so hard. And it automatically just put you right where you needed to be. And but that's how I got involved with the project. It's just auditioning. And working with actors, or working with people who it was the first time acting, was honestly kind of intimidating, because I just wanted to blend in with the group. I didn't want to seem like someone, you know, who wasn't born in the territory and, you know, in that part of the world. And so I remember literally after our first table read, Ben and I, we were just hanging out with the group, with the rest of the team. And I was just trying to spend as much time with them as possible and just kind of get into the groove and into what they were doing. I wanted to just do what they were doing. I didn't want to try to add anything else, you know.
Mm.
You know, it's funny. I remember both Ben and Will coming up after the first day, and there was that feeling of the professional actors were going to kind of be the mentors and a little bit the teachers for for the kids. And like Russ's experience, both Ben and Will came up and said, holy crap, they're so real, they're so good, we're gonna have to up our game. Like we need to blend to them because they're so authentic and these actors are so naturally gifted. So
I remember there being days when we were shooting with Ricky, who plays Adam in the film, and we'd like show up on set, and Ricky would be like, "What scene are we shooting today?" And I'd be like, "It's the scene with the thing and the thing," and he's like, "Right, what are my lines in that?" And then like we'd like look at the sides, and then we'd start filming, and he would just nail it. He was just he'd like refresh his memory in the script, and then we would film it, and he was just has such gravitas and such ease and like such just kind of totally unnatural generosity as a performer, like not an ounce of self-consciousness, and you're just like, oh my gosh, yeah. It was it was just a thrill. I mean, to this day, it was one of the most rewarding and fun film experiences I've had. And I think when you're on location with a team, and particularly when it's a unique and extraordinary location. I mean, if you're shooting a movie like in LA or New York, you know, everyone like has their life, everyone goes home on the weekends, but when you're all really in it together, and you're all it's a particular type of it's a particular flavor to a storytelling experience, the actual experience of making it. And I think it did a lot to bond us, and also to propel the story, because the setting is the main character of the film, and getting to be there was really like, that was the kicker.
Nice.
And I'd say that extended even past the cast and the crew, like literally everybody on set. It was a giant family, and we hung out offset all the time. And it was just, it became a little gang, a little family that just would do anything to help the other person, which is really nice.
That's fantastic to hear. And also, you know, when you're talking to a lot of filmmakers, and you talk about other movies they've made, and it's like, they always talk about, well, we had 3 weeks of rehearsal so we could create this, you know, this family bond for them. So when it started rolling, and, you know, with this movie, that just naturally had to happen, because no one's going back to New York after a day of shooting up there. And I think it is captured so well in the movie, just especially the bond that the players themselves have, because they've already, you know, lived together, and they're from that community. And I want to jump now to the lacrosse part. Ben and Booboo, have you ever played lacrosse before this movie?
No.
Oh, I've never even held a lacrosse stick.
The lacrosse stick. So, I guess first, you know, what was the lacrosse training like, and how was that balanced with maybe rehearsals? Because you're also acting, like you still have to act. Your character's playing lacrosse, you're not playing lacrosse, so there's that element too. And so, I mean, did you have like an actual trainer sort of that flew up and was on set to train everybody? What was the lacrosse training part like?
Well, I worked with a guy, one of our producers, Jake Steinfeld, had put me in touch with a gentleman in New York who was like a professional lacrosse player. And he and I hooked up a few times, and he was teaching me lacrosse. And I realized very early on, he was like teaching me, you know, these are the rules, and this is like from the ground up. And I was like, oh, no, I don't like, if we had a couple years, that would be great. But I was like, I need to know how to do like a couple things really well.
Because you're the one, you had to be good. Everyone else could learn on film, you had to be good.
I had to be good, Jeremy, but I had to look like I was good at lacrosse, because I demonstrate a few things, and then I stand. So I was basically, when he would give me drills to do, I would like look at him and see how he was standing with his stick, how he was watching me. And I asked him to teach me how to do a few little tricks, and just, I wanted the lacrosse stick to kind of feel like an extension of Russ. And I think it would have been a little trickier, I think, for Booboo and the team, because they kind of had to chart out, you know, starting as total novices and beginners, and then chart getting really good and being competitive lacrosse players. But when we filmed the tournament stuff, we had the real Russ Shepard with us, and he did a whole lot of the lacrosse. He was our lacrosse technician, which was very, very cool.
Nice. Booboo, how was it for you, not only trying to get your character arc with just character, but a lacrosse arc throughout the course of this movie too?
Well, the beginning of it was easy because I sucked. I had no idea what I was doing. The only hard part was the end. No, honestly, it was amazing. Lacrosse is such a difficult sport. I take my hat off to anybody who can actually just run with the stick and the ball without falling out of the net, like literally getting a good catch. It was really difficult, but in the beginning we did a lot of some of the actors in the film were actually really good lacrosse players too. So for them, it would have them trying that, like one guy in particular was really good, and I remember him trying to not look good was hard for him. But
yeah, Colton.
Yeah. But we would schedule a lot of mini games between the team. We had a bunch of mini games that we played. I remember,
so like on days off from filming kind of thing.
Yeah, we had lacrosse like training up there, and just like running drills with Russ, the real Russ, which was interesting, which was cool, having him train us. And actually, for one scene, Kyle, the real person, Kyle Aviak, he had come up for a bit, and he doubled me in a shot where he tosses the stick and the ball into the net. So that was actually him doing it, which was really, really like an honor to have him do that. And it's so crazy when you see someone who's really good at lacrosse, and there's like, wah, wah, bam, and the ball just flies like a rock. It's really amazing.
I feel like Booboo's being a little modest, because the truth is we did have, this 3-week training while we were shooting the first part of the film. And when we got to see how all of them were learning it, some of them were getting, like, including Booboo, was getting too good. And it was like, guys, okay, stop the training right now. You got to look bad still.
I remember on the sequence of the training sequence, you're like, okay, somebody has to miss. But no, like a bunch of guys, like no one wanted to be the one to miss the catch or anything. Like no, come on. Like trying to actually be really good.
One of the guys Boo was talking about before, one of the team was this actor Colton Hart, and he was like an actual, not professional lacrosse player, but he was like a nationally ranked, just a really, really good competitive lacrosse player. And he was he kind of was also a bit of an advisor as well as playing one of the Grizzlies. And it was really funny playing his coach and being like, who would like shoot a scene, and he's playing my student who I'm teaching how to play lacrosse, and we cut, and he'd be like, Colton, was that good? Tell me what I should. And he was just also the consigliere of like, how do we do this and how do we do that? But yeah, it was fun.
Nice. A lot of work that definitely paid off on film. Yeah. Miranda, I want to talk to you about, we talked to a lot of action directors about fight choreography, but I'm really interested in sports choreography. How, especially when you get to like sort of the matches at the end in Toronto, how did you approach filming that? Is it a lot of cameras? Did you just let them play, or is it really meticulously storyboarded?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, I, like the guys, knew nothing about lacrosse, and I thought, in this movie there's both fights, but there's sports. And this is my first time directing a film, period. So, let alone having to do sports sequences. Jim Deneau, who was our DP, had he had shot some sports before, so he was helpful. But what we kind of did was, for some of the wider shots, we just let them play, and we had professional teams all come on and play in jerseys. So they were great because we didn't have to give them a lot. For the moments where we really needed story, those were highly choreographed. And I would work with the real Russ Shepard. We would choreograph those out, make sure these plays made sense, and then shoot them in pieces and sequences. But I ended up loving it. I just thought, I was like, oh, I could just shoot sports the rest of my life. It was super action, and to get onto that field And just even to shoot all of the lacrosse that we got to shoot in the Arctic it's really fun to shoot that stuff. You know, it's just dynamic, and you can grab shots in a lot of different places to piece it together. I watched a lot of sports movies too.
Any sports movie in particular that you found that you kind of kept revisiting because it was sort of inspired, sort of?
You know, there were so many. I mean, some of them
There's a
was
lot.
there was everything from, you know, like Remember the Titans. I mean, some were just really action sports films, to movies that, like, you know, Hoop Dreams, like really the emotional. It was just a big mix. Every sports film you can think of, I watched.
It took it to the next level too. Like literally, I remember being outside of, we were doing a scene where the team, before they were a team, had to show promise that they could actually play sports, and the guys weren't like jumping around, you know, hardy enough. And Miranda was literally like, "No, do this," and she like literally jumped full on, all the way stretched out onto her stomach, landing in the snow, trying to show all the guys like how to play the game. Like she goes for it.
Nice. Very interactive director. That's what we like to see. I'll switch gears a little bit. And I know, Miranda, like you mentioned, this was your first feature film that you directed. And one of the things that really struck me while I was watching it is the tone of the film. There's sort of a roller coaster of emotions that goes on through this film. And you deal with a lot of, you know, two very, really heavy topics, sort of suicide and alcoholism. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how you work to strike and balance these tones, because there's uplifting moments and there's fun moments and moments of joy, but then there's moments of pain and grief that this community is dealing with, and how you struck that balance sort of in production, and then also like working with the editors to sort of smooth it all out.
Well, you know, I mean, hats off to our incredible writers, Graham Yost and Moira Woolley-Beckett, who really did a phenomenal job, spent time up there and hadn't like me, got to the Arctic for the first time. But as the script developed and as I spent more time up there and more time with Stacey and Alethea, the script evolved, and really spending more time we did a workshop with kids before the actual workshop where we cast the movie, and the journey of doing that first workshop too, and getting to spend weeks and weeks in the North with a lot of young people also helped to evolve the script, because in the beginning it had been much more from Russ's perspective, and then as time went on with the development of the script, it was really clear to all of us working on it that this needed to be from much more evolve into from the kids' perspective. So all I can say is that balance was constantly being reassessed and looked at. Before we started to work on the movie, conversations about reconciliation and decolonization weren't really happening, and the importance of perspective. But naturally, by working with Stacey and Alethea, they read every single draft of the script. They would weigh in. I mean, Stacey can talk to that, making sure when we're dealing with suicide that we're being really respectful of the truth, and at the same time not doing something in the film that's going to be triggering. And we were, I mean, down to Stace, I mean, the editing room, we would screen it for Indigenous community members and get their feedback and fine cut down to a really fine art, making sure that the tone was threading a needle. I don't know, Stace, if you want to add to that, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely it's a balance that we always have to consider, especially, you know, this is Indigenous communities, Indigenous stories, and like there's always a fear of reinforcing negative stereotypes that are consistently being thrown out there about Indigenous people in the media. so we were always very aware of that, and really tried to be delicate and careful about how we were portraying those stories, but we also want to be truthful to the experience and not downplay that either. So like Miranda says, we did so many test screenings where, I mean, there was even, I think we did one test screening here in Iqaluit, where one of the comments was like, they just didn't feel like they got to see enough of the joy of and beauty of the community. So we actually went and did a pickup shoot in Iqaluit where we just got shots of hunters like packing the boat or the sled or whatever it was, getting ready to go out hunting, kids playing on the side of the street, playing, you know, soccer, and a mother with her baby sort of thing. So just like those moments to try and bring levity and balance to the story, that it's not all doom and gloom. There's real joy and real heart and life and laughter in the Arctic and Indigenous communities as well.
I mean, one of the other things I remember, Ben, we ended up doing some ADR for the Russ character right up until almost we locked picture, because, you know, it was that balance of wanting the character of Russ to be naive but not unlikable. And it was that we want to see his growth, but we don't want to see him being so overtly ignorant that you stop watching. We want to be able to see his growth.
And I think that does come across. I'm glad you actually mentioned that, Stacey, about that feedback you received and how you sort of fix that with those pickups. Because like I mentioned earlier, so one of the tones of the movie is joy in the movie, and that was really just great to see. Are there any other, you know, based on those test screenings that you did, were there any other feedback that sort of stood out to you, Stacey, in particular, that helped sort of shape the film?
I mean, I guess we did a test screening. Miranda and I traveled to Koglukduk with one of our, like it was almost pretty like very close to the final version sort of thing, but we wanted to test screen it with some of the real Grizzlies, the real kids from Koglukduk who are now all parents and living their own lives, and, you know, have their own children are now Grizzlies sort of thing. So we got a classroom in the Koglukduk High School where it all started, and we sat down with a bunch of the original Grizzlies and we watched the movie, and it was one of the most terrifying experiences ever, probably. Or one of them next to the actual screening for the public screening in Koglukduk. But I mean, I feel like the comments that came from the private screening in Coog for the original Grizzlies was just like, it was so inspirational and moving and beautiful. And then after the movie, everybody just sat around reminiscing and telling stories, and both me and Miranda were just like, what? Why didn't you tell us that story for the movie? Oh, that's a good one. Like, oh, that would have been a great scene. Why are you telling us now?
Nice. Oh, it's so great that you were able to go to Kugluktuk and show them sort of a pre-advanced screening. It must have been a great experience.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And then we got to go away and then took some of their notes. I don't even recall fully if there was any kind of critical notes. It was just joy and love and reminiscing sort of thing. But then shortly thereafter, we were able to lock it and get it ready for the Toronto International Film Festival.
Nice. That's wonderful. So we're almost at the end. That was a very quick sort of 35 minutes. You guys are a lot of fun to talk to. This is great. I do want to end on just ask Booboo and Ben both sort of how you found this experience of playing true life people, and sort of what any maybe additional acting or just additional pressure was that you felt sort of in telling this particular story. Booboo, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I tried not to think about the additional pressure and things, but there wasn't a lot of material to really dig into Kyle, like out there on the internet, you know. I remember there was was it the ESPN special? There's the special that I just kept watching over and over. And I remember like screenshotting when it would go to Kyle, I'd like take a picture of him, like just to see just to read into like more of what was happening, like beyond the photo, and just any time he was on screen during that. And then honestly, I can't remember if I don't think I even talked to Kyle. I think Miranda and I kind of decided just to embody whatever the feeling was that I was already omitting or getting from the character and the script, and just being in the Arctic and just letting that carry Kyle. And I think it totally worked. I don't know, there's a lot of pressure, I feel like, when you're playing someone to like be exactly like this person, but at the end of the day, you have to trust like that Miranda saw that person in you already, and that you're going to do that without having to like act like that person, because then you're just trying to imitate, you know. I don't know.
It's imitation, right?
It doesn't feel as genuine. So I trusted that she saw Kyle in me already, and that I just had to play it how I would, how I felt to be right and natural. And yeah, I tried and Kyle came up there too. And meeting Kyle was interesting because I was playing him, you know, years before, obviously, the present time. And he's such a different person. He's so much more confident and things like that. And so it's very interesting to talk to him and to be playing him in his younger self, which was a very different person than who he is today. But yeah, it was amazing. And with Miranda's guidance, and then just with Ben there too, and all of the whole entire cast, just trying to just slide into the world, and without being without seeming like someone who wasn't already there. And I honestly, like, whenever things felt kind of rocky or anything, I would just like either just listen to Ben or just listen to the guys, or just like look at the guys' faces, and just it just was so there was an energy that I've never felt before while filming when we made this movie. And I don't know how many times you get to feel this sort of certain energy, just the camaraderie of everybody. And it was the story itself just being embodied through everybody on set. And so whenever there was a question of doubt or anything, I just found myself just like taking a deep breath and just putting myself just back in the place and where I was. I just had to look around essentially and listen. So yeah.
You're so good in this movie, Booboo. You did such a good job, dude.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And Ben, you must have had probably more to maybe go off with. Russ is probably a little bit more information about him out there on the internet.
Yeah.
Footage.
Booboo said something really interesting though, which was a bit of a double-edged sword as well. Is that when you meet Russ now, like if scientists went into a lab and made like the perfect teacher, coach, mentor, he'd kill me for saying this, but like it's Russ. He's so self-possessed and like unsentimental, but warm and avuncular and brotherly. Like he's the man. But I wasn't playing that Russ. I was playing Russ years and years and years ago, who was naive and a little confident or overconfident and you know, very flawed. And so there were times when I would really have to check myself, because he's a really fun guy to be around, Russ. And I would have to remind myself that I'm not playing this seasoned, experienced, and again, he'd kill me for saying all these things, but like wise man. I'm playing quite a you know, young, naive guy. And so I tried to spend as much time with him as was helpful, but not too much time that it might start swaying me in the opposite direction. But as well, you know, you do what best serves the story. Like the script and the screenplay that you're working from is that's the spine, and everything goes into serving that. And so I think, you know, Russ's role in the film is, you know, narratively speaking, is he's there for the audience to he's a conduit for the audience to see this. He's the outsider who comes here and is able to then just, and then, you know, the real story is about the team, and is about the Grizzlies, and is about the setting. And so I just wanted to show up and, you know, just show up and say the lines. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's a wonderful, it's a beautiful, inspiring film. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Miranda, Stacey, Ben, Booboo, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really enjoyed talking about this film with you guys.
Thank you very much.
So thank you.
And, thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining in with us today at home. And then please, you can check out The Grizzlies. It's streaming everywhere on demand. And for more information on how to find it, you can go to thegrizzliesmovie.com. So thank you again, and be sure everyone to check out this movie.